When a woman is truly finished with a man, there is no confusion, no mixed signals, no guessing game. She doesn't leave breadcrumbs. She doesn't test. She doesn't try to provoke a reaction. She exits with a finality that is unmistakable. But most men misread the situation because they assume silence means she's done, when in reality, silence is often the loudest sign she's not finished at all. The biggest mistake men make is believing that a woman pulling back, going quiet, or acting distant is the end. In truth, when she's genuinely done, she doesn't pull back. She cuts off completely, and the difference is massive. A woman who's finished with you emotionally doesn't linger in your world. She doesn't continue to watch you, react to you, or stay aware of your moves. She doesn't send mixed messages. She doesn't show flashes of emotion. She doesn't pop in and out of your life. She isn't confused, and she doesn't need time to think. When she's done, she acts like someone who's walked out of a burning building and closed the door behind her for good. She stops caring. She stops responding. She stops paying attention. She stops wondering what you're doing. And most importantly, she stops feeling anything: anger, jealousy, frustration, curiosity, guilt, nothing. So when a woman pulls away but still shows any form of emotional energy, positive or negative, that's the biggest sign she is not done. Because emotional energy reveals emotional attachment. A woman doesn't waste emotional effort on a man who no longer matters to her. She doesn't argue. She doesn't criticize. She doesn't get irritated. She doesn't give cold responses. She doesn't block and unblock. She doesn't check your page. She doesn't ask mutual friends about you. She simply disappears. That's the real ending. But if she reacts, if she watches, if she sends short replies instead of no replies, if she acts cold instead of indifferent, if she slows down the communication instead of cutting it off, those are not signs of being done. Those are signs of emotional conflict. And emotional conflict means there are still feelings she hasn't resolved. A woman who still feels anything toward you, even tension, even frustration, is a woman who still cares on some level. Here's what most men miss: a woman who wants to be done but still has unresolved feelings will often try to create distance without fully detaching. She may think pulling back will protect her or teach you a lesson or give her space to think or make you chase. She's not leaving because she's finished. She's leaving because she doesn't know what to do with how she feels. And her confusion makes her act inconsistent. Sometimes warm, sometimes cold, sometimes engaging, sometimes distant, sometimes curious, sometimes silent. These shifts don't mean she's done with you. They mean she's wrestling with her emotions. The truth is, silence is the battlefield where the real emotions show themselves. A woman who's done doesn't return. She doesn't check in. She doesn't observe from afar. But if she's still somewhere in your orbit, even silently, it means she hasn't closed the book. She's just paused the page. And when you pull back longer than she expected, that's when the truth comes out. Because if she's truly done, your absence won't bother her. But if she's not, your silence becomes the trigger that reveals everything she's been hiding from herself. A man must learn to read actions, not assumptions. Because the moment you understand what real finality looks like, you stop chasing shadows and start recognizing the difference between a woman who's gone and a woman who's conflicted. And once you understand that difference, you stop doubting yourself. A lot of men misunderstand the emotional landscape of a breakup or a distancing phase because they only look at the surface. They see a woman acting cold, irritated, short-tempered, distant, or defensive, and they immediately think, she's done with me. But what they don't understand is that emotional intensity is the complete opposite of emotional detachment. If she were truly finished, she wouldn't feel anything at all. She wouldn't get annoyed. She wouldn't get triggered. She wouldn't try to prove a point. She wouldn't give you attitude. She wouldn't react to you whatsoever. The reactions themselves are the proof she's not done, because indifference is the true final stage, not coldness. Coldness is still a temperature. Indifference is 0 degrees. When a woman still feels, whether it's irritation, jealousy, anger, or confusion, that emotion is rooted in attachment. A woman who genuinely doesn't care will not invest emotional energy into anything you say or do. She won't argue. She won't push back. She won't try to protect her ego. She won't try to get a rise out of you. Why? Because it no longer matters to her. But the moment she shows any emotional spike, it means you still hold power in her inner world. People don't get emotional about people who mean nothing to them. Think about it. The opposite of love is not hate. Hate still requires emotion, energy, focus, and thought. The opposite of love is indifference, complete emotional silence. Hate means she still cares. Jealousy means she still cares. Irritation means she still cares. Confusion means she still cares. Even blocking you out of anger means she still cares. Because whether she's upset, triggered, disappointed, or defensive, each of those emotions requires an emotional investment. And a woman will never invest in a man she's truly done with. A woman who is emotionally finished won't try to hurt you. She won't try to get your attention. She won't test you. She won't send mixed signals. She won't leave the door cracked open. She won't pull away hoping you chase. She simply detaches. She moves on quietly. She exits your life the same way a person walks out of a room they no longer want to be in, without a second thought, without checking back, without caring what you do after she closes the door. So when a woman shows emotional spikes, even negative ones, that is not the end. It is the internal struggle she's facing. She wants distance, but she doesn't want to detach. She wants space, but she doesn't want to sever the connection. She wants to regain emotional control, but she's still emotionally invested. She's trying to silence the attachment, not erase it. And this is where men need to read between the lines. When she acts distant but not indifferent, cold but not gone, irritated but not detached, that paradox reveals everything. It shows she's wrestling with emotion she doesn't fully understand yet. It shows that the chapter is not closed. It's paused, and it shows that you are still significant enough to impact her emotional state. A man who learns to distinguish emotional intensity from emotional detachment stops chasing the wrong signals and starts understanding the truth underneath her actions. One of the biggest misconceptions men have is believing that when a woman acts uninterested, she has stopped caring. But women do something very different when they're emotionally conflicted. They watch, they observe, they monitor, they gather information in silence. And this is where most men miss the biggest sign. If she were truly done with you, she wouldn't track you. She wouldn't try to understand what you're doing, and she wouldn't stay aware of your life. But when she still checks your movements, even if she pretends not to, that's when you know she isn't emotionally finished at all. Women observe because observation gives them emotional control. Rather than reach out and reveal their feelings, they prefer to stay hidden and watch what you do without giving away their position. That's why you'll notice subtle signs, like her suddenly watching your stories again, liking something old by accident, responding to things indirectly, or asking mutual friends what you've been up to. She may not say a single word to you, but she is still gathering information, because she wants to know whether you've moved on, whether you're doing better without her, whether another woman has your attention, or whether you are still emotionally available. These are not the actions of a woman who is done. They are the behaviors of a woman who is conflicted, curious, and still attached on some level. You have to understand that women often hide their true feelings behind distance. They don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want to express interest first. They don't want to show you that you still matter. So instead of reaching out, they study you in silence. They track your social media. They watch who interacts with you. They look for changes in your behavior. They compare how you act now to how you acted when you were connected. This is her emotional radar scanning for answers without having to ask questions. And here's the deeper truth. She watches even more closely when she's pretending to be done, because what she's really trying to do is see how much power she still has. If you fall apart, she knows she still matters. If you chase, she knows she still has emotional influence. If you look desperate, she knows the door is still open. But if you remain calm, composed, disciplined, focused, and unmoved, that's when her emotions get shaken. Because your stability exposes her own uncertainty. She expected you to crumble. She expected you to react. She expected you to chase. When you don't, it throws her off balance. This is why your silence becomes more powerful than anything you could ever say. Silence gives her nothing to read, nothing to judge, nothing to analyze, nothing to react to. And that absence of information forces her mind to fill in the gaps. Women hate the unknown. They crave emotional clarity. When you remove access to your energy, she starts imagining scenarios, most of which make her question everything. Is he moving on? Is he talking to someone else? Does he not care anymore? Did I misjudge him? And suddenly the woman who acted uninterested is now emotionally activated. Even if she doesn't reach out, even if she doesn't break the silence. The fact that she is still watching you is enough to reveal that she hasn't emotionally detached. A woman who is done does not observe a man's life. She lets it go completely. So if she's still checking in silently, through friends, through socials, through patterns, through timing, then she's not done. She's processing, she's conflicted, she's testing, and most importantly, she still feels something she doesn't want to admit. A man who understands this stops misreading her silence as an ending and recognizes it as the clearest sign that the story isn't finished yet. One of the strongest signs that she isn't done with you is the emotional conflict she tries so hard to hide. A woman who has completely detached from a man doesn't wrestle with herself. She doesn't go back and forth in her mind. She doesn't replay conversations, question her choices, or wonder what you're doing. But a woman who still feels something, whether it's regret, confusion, attachment, or unresolved emotion, cannot simply shut off her internal dialogue. She tries to convince herself she's moved on, yet her actions and reactions tell a very different story. Her mind becomes a battleground where logic and emotion collide. Logic tells her she made the right decision, that she should remain distant, that she should protect her pride. But emotion pulls her back toward the memories, the moments, the stability she once had with you. She remembers the comfort, the connection, the version of herself she was around you. Even if things didn't end well, the emotional wiring is still there. And emotional wiring doesn't disconnect just because she tells herself it should. That's why she feels conflicted. She has one foot in the past and one foot trying to step forward, and neither direction feels fully certain. You'll notice this conflict in the subtle shifts in how she responds or doesn't respond. Sometimes she might appear cold or distant, acting like she has no interest at all. But then out of nowhere, she'll show a small sign of reaction. A glance, a story view, a delayed, like a moment of hesitation, a random interaction through a mutual friend. She may not reach out directly, but she can't fully remove herself either. This inconsistency is not randomness, it's emotional confusion. She's trying to suppress feelings that keep resurfacing. Women often push away the person they care about when they're unsure of themselves. They try to detach to see how it feels, to check if distance brings relief or regret. But instead of clarity, she feels tension. She wonders if she walked away too quickly, if she misjudged the situation, or if she expected more from you than she communicated. Her silence becomes less of a statement and more of a shield. She isn't silent because she's done. She's silent because she's trying to figure herself out without exposing her vulnerability. And here's something most men overlook. Emotional conflict is often louder than emotional expression. When she's done, she's steady, indifferent, unaffected. But when she's conflicted, she becomes unpredictable. Her behavior doesn't match her words. She says she wants to move on, but she watches your life closely. She acts like she doesn't care, but her reactions reveal she does. She tries to look strong, but her patterns show hesitation. This internal war keeps her from ending the story completely because emotionally she hasn't reached a conclusion. Your silence and composure amplify her conflict even more. When you don't chase, when you don't react, when you don't try to solve her confusion for her, she's forced to face her own emotions without distraction. She begins questioning herself more intensely. Your discipline creates a mirror, one where she sees her own uncertainty more clearly. And that's when the conflict pushes her deeper into reflection rather than closure. A woman who is done feels nothing. A woman who is conflicted feels everything all at once, even if she never says a word. And that emotional storm inside her is the clearest sign that the connection still lives. One of the biggest signs that she is not actually done with you is her sudden obsession with who you are becoming without her. When a woman has truly moved on, she stops checking your life. She stops wondering what you're doing, who you're with, or how you're handling the separation. But when she still has an emotional attachment, no matter how well she hides it, your growth becomes something she can't ignore. In fact, the more you evolve, the more her mind starts trying to fill in the gaps, the more she wonders whether walking away was her biggest mistake. Your silence already created distance, and distance naturally creates curiosity. But your improvement is what creates emotional impact. You're no longer the man she remembers. You're becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone disciplined. And this transformation threatens her sense of control over the narrative. She expected you to stay the same. She expected you to fall apart a little. She expected you to chase, to prove something, to show that losing her damaged you. When you don't crumble, when you don't beg, when you don't spiral, that's when her assumptions start breaking down. Women often think they know exactly how a man will respond after the breakup. They expect the patterns they saw in the relationship to continue. But when you go silent and simultaneously elevate your life, you disrupt everything she predicted. And suddenly, she starts paying attention, not because she wants to, but because she can't help it. She feels compelled to know who you're becoming. She watches from a distance, and sometimes she won't even understand why she feels drawn to check up on you. It's not pride or ego at this point. It's instinct. When a man grows, people notice. And when that man is someone she once called hers, the emotional pull becomes even stronger. She'll start to notice the small things you've changed, even if you didn't announce them. The way you dress, the confidence in your posture, the discipline in your routine, the peace in your energy. She'll notice you becoming emotionally grounded, more focused, more self-controlled. And that's when the questions in her mind become louder. Was she wrong about you? Was she too impatient? Did she give up on someone who was just about to level up? These thoughts don't always reach her conscious mind, but emotionally, they hit hard. Her mind starts comparing the version of you she left with the version of you she's seeing now. And that comparison rarely lands in her favor. She may find herself feeling a mix of admiration, regret, jealousy, or even resentment because she lost access to the man you're becoming. And it's important to understand that this emotional shift has nothing to do with revenge or payback. It's simply human nature. People feel the absence of what once was familiar especially when that familiar thing becomes better without them. Your growth also challenges her ego. She expected to be the chapter that shaped your life, but now she's watching you rewrite yourself without needing her feedback or validation. That realization shakes her. She didn't expect to lose her inkler departure to serve as fuel for your transformation. And deep down, she starts wondering whether she misjudged your potential or undervalued your presence. This is why staying silent and focusing on your elevation is so powerful. It shifts the emotional weight off your shoulders and onto hers. It forces her to confront the reality that you're not stuck in the past. You're moving toward a future she no longer controls. And whether she admits it or not, that truth hits her harder than anything you could ever say. Another major sign that she's not actually done with you, one that most men overlook, is the way she starts reacting to your emotional detachment. When a woman has genuinely moved on, she stops caring about your energy. She no longer pays attention to your mood, your tone, or your presence. But when she's not truly finished with you, your emotional distance becomes something she feels deeply, even if she pretends otherwise. And the quieter you become, the more she notices the absence of the connection she used to depend on. There is a very specific shift that happens when your emotions stop flowing toward her. She may have gotten used to you being available, you being open, you being expressive. She may have felt comfort knowing that no matter what happened, you still had her in your heart. Even if you weren't together, even if things were complicated, she knew she could expect a certain emotional consistency from you. But the moment you pull that energy away, something inside her starts to react. It's not always logical. It's not always visible. But emotionally, she feels the withdrawal like a sudden drop in temperature. Women often think they're done until they realize the emotional influence they had over a man is fading. When your feelings no longer revolve around her, when your day no longer circles back to her memory, when your life starts moving without emotional dependence, she senses that shift on a deeper level than you might imagine. And this is where her internal conflict begins. She doesn't necessarily want the relationship back. She doesn't necessarily want to fix the past. But she doesn't want to feel forgotten either. She doesn't want to lose the emotional grip she once had. Your emotional detachment becomes a mirror, reflecting something she didn't want to face. She was used to being significant in your world, and now she's just another person. That realization sparks confusion. She starts questioning whether she actually wanted things to end as strongly as she claimed. She may even start replaying specific moments, your loyalty, your effort, your consistency, because now she feels the difference between having that influence and losing it. Her mind will try to fill in the blanks. Why isn't he reaching out? Why isn't he affected? Why didn't he react the way she expected? These questions grow not because she still wants a relationship, but because she didn't expect your emotional strength to shift so sharply. She didn't expect you to detach from the connection she thought would hold you. And that unexpected change forces her to confront something powerful. You were never weak. You were never chasing. You were simply choosing her. And once you stopped choosing her, she realized that your emotions were not a given, they were a gift. Your detachment is also a sign of self-respect. It shows that you're no longer anchored to the past, no longer trapped in emotional repetition. And when a woman senses a man has reclaimed his emotional independence, it triggers something primal. Curiosity, regret, concern, and sometimes even attraction. Because emotional control is one of the strongest forms of masculine power. And that is why this final sign is so powerful. When your emotions are no longer available to her, she feels it in ways she may never admit. And that feeling is what reminds her that she's not as done with you as she wanted to believe.